will see represents nationalism while allow me to introduce the panel of judges. We have the head of the English department, Mr. Sheikh Sabah. We have the head of the science department, Mr. Haytham Abour. We have our business expert, Mr. James Mahmoud. That we all say in class, the power of the word is mightier than the power of the sword. Okay? No great advance has ever been achieved in politics, science, or religion without the power of debating. Today, we're going to witness the power of the words and the influence of the ideas. We're going to start.
Was driving your journalists, earning your weak scholars, and bring your favorite to the top. This is globalization. Globalization is the process of international integration arising from the exchange of world's views, products, ideas, and activities among all nations. This has led to generates further mutuality of cultural and economic activities. Globalization is a term that came into popular usage in the 1980s. Describe the increased movement in the above-mentioned aspects. Among all nations, this generates this has led to increased analogy among all nations. Many of the major levels, economically and culturally. And finally, if you want to compare globalization to nationalism, whose opinion can be trusted more than Einstein's who compared nationalism to a fake disease when he said, nationalism is an infantile disease, it is the least of mankind. Thank you.
Thank you. Love.
modern world experiences nowadays. Although many of you do not exactly know what globalization is, everyone in this room is without a doubt living through its uncountable outcomes. To make more sense of what I mean, I'll be showcasing numerous examples of how globalization positively benefited the world economy. To begin with, ever since globalization took place, the global economy became on the rise. Due to its proliferation, international exports increased 13-fold since 1950. Moreover, direct investments increased substantially from $13 billion to 1950 to $1.8 trillion today. In addition, the number of multinational corporations increased 9 times to a current number of around 65,000 corporations. Globalization has caused mind-blowing changes in poverty rates around the world. In China, the reform has led to the largest poverty reduction in history. Between 1990 and 2005, the poverty rate in China decreased from 60% to a mere 16%, leaving 450 million fewer people in poverty. India cut its poverty rates in half in the past 2 decades. In Uganda, poverty fell 40% and school enrollment doubled. Surveys of the poorest households in Vietnam show that 90% of people increased their living conditions in the 1990s. The numbers speak for themselves. Without globalization, it would have been extremely difficult, if not impossible, to achieve such incredible numbers. We're all in school today, aren't we? For what purpose? Education, obviously. Did you know that without globalization, we wouldn't have the knowledge we have today? Ever since globalization has been taking effect, the quality of education has been increasing. Let me give you an example. 2 generations ago, South Korea had an economic output similar to Mexico and ranked 24th among the 30 OECD countries. Today, South Korea is in the top 10 countries in terms of high school graduation rates, significantly ahead of the United States of America. I am sure there are many people in this room that would like to study abroad. Thanks to globalization, it is easier to do so. As a result, one can get specialization in subjects not indigenous to his country, and then spread that knowledge in his home country. A solid example of the latter is how the American managers went to Japan to learn the best practices of mass production and then incorporate that knowledge in their own production units. Nowadays, we take transportation for granted. But if we look back a couple of centuries ago, transportation was significantly more difficult, tiring, and more importantly, costly. With the advent of globalization, there has been an immense increase in the transportation of goods and services worldwide. Things that took weeks or maybe months for conveyance can now be easily available within a couple of days. Finally, technology is now more advanced than ever. We depend on it every day, everywhere, and at almost every second. Can you imagine your life without the internet, without smartphones, without entertainment devices? Technology, especially the internet, is another outcome of globalization. Thank you very much, and I really
you. Now comes the examination by the judge.
Okay, so you've given the example of China. China is one of the world's greatest nationalistic country. It's not a globalized country. It produces its own merchandise. The workers there, they produce their own merchandise and their own products. So how can you explain that China is an example of globalization?
When I talked about China, I was talking about poverty rate in China, not production and exports in China, the society itself.
Okay, so you're saying that a nationalistic country has increased poverty, not a globalized country. How can you explain that?
Let me explain it. Well, if you look at how the industry. Now, if you look at how the industry in China before and now, because of globalization, everyone wants to produce in China now, and therefore reducing the poverty rate in China. So China is part of globalization. People choose China to manufacture their products because it is cheaper, obviously, and therefore it is helping the society of China itself.
You all talked about technology, yeah? Now, globalization has led to progress in technology, and as a result, the people now, the usage of machinery has been used like in factories and etc. This has caused people to get out of jobs because now machines do their jobs, and this has caused like many job losses. People, so how is that reducing poverty?
Machines have been replacing humans, obviously, but do you think that nationalism is fixing that either? It's not, actually. Globalization is well, those machines need people to control them. Not as you can see, like car manufacturing, everything has to be monitored by people. So therefore offering jobs in a different sector.
But people used to do their own labor. They did the labor, they produced, not machines. Okay, it takes only one person to build, you know, or look at how the machine works. It takes 10 people to actually make the product itself. So you're making 10 people work instead of one person.
I mean, when you talk about with machines, you're able to produce more. You're able to make more revenue. You're able to provide more money for the people.
So people being poor is better than.
That's not what I said.
No, wait. You prefer to have poor people than getting your merchandise for a smaller time.
this false strategy. And let me explain it further for you. When you're manufacturing more, that's one. Therefore you're producing more, you're selling more, you're making more money. Okay? And where does this money go? You tell me.
The head of the company or the head of the department.
And you think those are not going to be donations? You think those are not going to end up with the government of the country? That's what happens.
Now the time. Now the time for the first point by Proceed, Jiran and team. Thank you.
Morning. The British politician named Arthur Hendricks once said, "The transitory economic nationalism is only part of the general revival of nationalism." Studies have shown that overall economic growth has slowed in the past years, and it's likely to be tepid for a while. Now, for many nations, the reduced direct benefits of global trade dictate a withdrawal towards growth economies. By closing their economies and focusing domestically, nations are confident that they can capture a greater share of available growth by depending on themselves to produce their own products and thus delivering greater prosperity and job opportunities to their citizens. Let's take China for example. Now, China is an independent and nationalistic country. It's an independent and nationalistic country. As we can all see, China is one of the world's most successful and fastest growing economies. And because of its independence and its pursuance to produce their own products, it has given more job opportunities to their citizens and thus reducing poverty rate from an 8% population and 12% in 2010. Now, some economists believe that although globalization has had many benefits for the developing world in the past, it has not led to the elimination of world poverty. The number of people living in poverty remains unacceptably high. In addition, critics state that although globalization has not led to the stability of developing countries, as evidenced by financial crises in the years of 2007 and 2009, and in the 1980s and 1990s. The Japanese impact study of 2011 highlighted the vulnerability of supply chains when shortages of essential components halted production elsewhere. This states that specialization leaves economies vulnerable to competitive pressure from other nations. Also, various breakdowns like currency manipulation and restrictions on trade signal the retrenchment of globalization and return to autarky. Despite the economic benefits of global trade, open borders lead to more illegal trade of weapons and drugs and the widespread of diseases. Thus, the return to autarky and pursuance of policies favoring growth economies is now a serious possibility. Speaking of currency manipulation, nationalism means currency independence, allowing a nation to take control over its economy and not suffer from other currencies that it's tied to. For example, England's nationalism, which is represented by its currency independence, England refused to adopt the euro as its currency and thus having complete control over its economy. However, other European countries with the euro as their currency face crisis. Now, although pegged currency will help a small country's currency become reputable to the world market, it however creates a problem for managing the home economy, thus causing the country to lose control over its monetary policy and the government to lose control over prices and interest rates. This is shown in the way the UAE dirham depends significantly on the US dollar.
which makes the producer.
I'd like to hear a story of a British politician named John Turnbull.
These are the fruits of international capitalism, which makes the producer the slave of the jugglers of money, and British industry the slave of international conditions, which no British government can ever regulate or control. At the time I speak these words, there are still nearly 3 million unemployed in Britain. This constitutes a vast drain on the nation's resources, paying people to be idle. It also causes widespread demoralization, because in many areas of this country, great numbers of young people are leaving school, some of them with good qualifications and skills, without hope of work, either now or in the foreseeable future. What a waste of a nation's energy and talent this is, and also unnecessary. We have factories standing unoccupied, or only partly occupied. We have machines in those factories capable of producing goods. We have people capable of operating those machines, or who can be easily trained to operate. And we have people who could buy the goods when they're produced. All the components are there for a thriving economy, without a single worker wanting to a job. And yet we are not able to put this economy into practice because of certain ancient superstitions that rule the minds of our politicians. So instead, we have national paralysis. What are these superstitions? First and foremost, there's the superstition of internationalism. Britain, they say, must be part of the international economy. This means that we must not be allowed to make decisions in the interest of our own industry if foreigners are opposed to it. Because of the international economy, we have Japanese and other foreign factories making the goods for our people that our own factories could make and should be making. While people buy Japanese electronic goods and motorcycles, British workers who could be employed making those things are paid for doing nothing. While people drive around in Japanese, German, French, Russian, Italian, Spanish, and Swedish cars, British motor workers are on the dole. While British cargoes are carried across the oceans by Japanese, Korean, German, and Finnish ships, the climate, the time, the weather, and other traditional shipbuilding areas are sunk deep in slumber. There are people in idleness and despair. Of course, we can anticipate the response of a Tory politician to this picture. It's a response that comes out of the predictability of a well-trained crowd. These foreigners have captured our market because they've been more efficient than our own workers. They produce better goods at better prices and deliver them on time. Because of this, they deserve to put our own workers out of their jobs. It's all part of the game of international competition. If our own industries improve their performance, they'll capture these markets back, and employment will then increase again. It's all up to the British worker himself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha, for your point. Now, we're going to listen to the cross-examination by Sahan Kali Bulji.
But, for example, UAE, we don't produce our own stuff, but there's no, respectively, there's no poverty.